People say to me, have mercy. Have mercy.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. I am your host, Tony James, and that's right, the bell of justice is ringing today. I hope everything's going well. We had such a fun time in the past. Pasts are fun, aren't they? You get to experience the past and think about it. Remember what you want, forget what you don't. We, with Jimmy and Bjorn, we decided here at the Lariato Ranch, we're going to do another episode with the Nordic Nightmare and the man from the center of the earth. We're going to talk about the top 10 greatest wrestlers plus one. We're going to talk about the Mount Rushmore of brawlers, modern day wrestlers, and scientific wrestlers. But before we get to that, I want to introduce to you the man from the center of the earth, Jimmy Fahrenheit. Jimmy, how you doing?
What's up, Tony? Doing good.
The Nordic Nightmare is back, ladies and gentlemen. He's back.
That's right. The Swedish stud has flown in from Sweden for the second time. Beautiful visiting Texas. This ranch is something I have not seen before. It is a sight. The artwork, the pictures, everything, everywhere. You could not imagine.
It just smells good.
There you go. And he did fly in from Sweden, and man, are his arms tired. So, with that being said, we got a normally we do. I may have missed it last time, but we always try to do an indie shout out, and Bjorn actually wants to do one of those. And then I have one question I want to propose to the panel here today, the triple threat panel, and then we're going to jump right into it. So, Bjorn, indie wrestling, you got a profile for us?
Yeah, I've got a wrestler. He's a fellow Midwest wrestler, fellow big man, fellow brawler. His name is Lobo Okami.
Ooh.
Lobo Okami, he is a wild-looking man. It is something I can appreciate myself, and I've watched him wrestle. He is a fighter. He is a brute. I would love to either be across the ring or side-by-side against him. Lobo Okami, if you hear this, hit me up, brother.
All right. Well, we'll try to get a hold of him. How did you come across him?
It's just one of those things. Sometimes you get stuck in a spider web through Instagram watching other wrestlers, and you just find people.
Well, we'll have to connect. I'd like to get some footage and a picture of him so we could get this posted on the Good, Bad, and the Wrestling at Tony James podcast. Maybe we can include this on the YouTube page. Hit us up, subscribe. We can put it with the Spotify. Hit us on follow. And then, of course, you can always go to Outlaw Tony James at Facebook. So what's his name again?
Lobo Okami.
Lobo Okami. We'll put him on our top 10 indie wrestler list. We'll check him out. You check him out. Guys, I got a question for you. The landscape of wrestling always used to be the big man's world, right? You went to the WWF, land of the giants. NWA, you always had big guys. They didn't promote it as that, but that's the way it was. AWA, not only did you have to have size, like the Bruiser, you had Killer Khan, you name them. Whether it was in Texas or wherever it was, you had the big bulky guys, the big hairy guys. That was the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Superstar broke that mold in the 70s, but he was. You look at Ken Patera and Ivan Putski in the 70s. They were power lifters. They had powerlifter bodies.
Right.
Smooth, bulky. The 80s came around, and you look at Ivan Putski and Ken Patera in the 80s, they were defined. They were huge. Everybody was big. You had the golden tans, whatever it was. 90s was a combination, but mostly you had that. And then you started getting your Bret Harts, your Shawn Michaels, who were sculpted, but they were middle-of-the-road wrestlers.
Yeah.
We are now living in an era of anything goes. Mm-hmm. Here's my question. Have we fallen into a typical body type again, where you are 5'8", 5'9", 6 foot, you weigh below 200 pounds, but you're ripped to freaking shreds? when you see them on TV, like when you look at Finn Balor, you're like,
Yeah.
holy crap, he's huge. But he's really what? 6 foot or under?
Yeah.
170 pounds?
Yeah, I was going to say he's
Yeah.
under 6 foot for sure.
And I'm sure when you're standing by him, his arms probably look like they're 19 inches on TV, but they probably aren't in real life.
Yeah.
So, and I'm noticing that prototype now. Everyone has similar trunks. We've always talked about this. He gets injured, we put another person in. But everybody seems to follow that prototype now. So, as an indie guy, if you don't know much about dieting or you're not into throwing the weight around, to try to get some kind of sculpted or at least in shape look. Because if you're 175 and you haven't been in the gym, even if you don't have a gut, it's hard for me to follow you in the ring. I want somebody who looks the part.
Yeah.
But have they taken it too far to where now you have to look like you have 0% body fat?
I want to say, I think the reason most of the indie guys are trying to kind of have that look, I would probably say it would be from like Finn Balor and maybe a Christopher Daniels. Maybe not as much of an AJ Styles. He isn't like ripped to,
No, he looks good.
He looks good. He ain't ripped to shreds.
But he looks, I don't want to say normal, but...
No, but
he
he's
looks
not.
like
Yeah.
a solid man.
But he's a
Right.
solid. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Finn Balor and them put a lot of work into their
No,
diet.
yeah, and I'm not saying anybody looks like crap. And
No.
I'm not saying anybody's a bad worker, but I feel like when those guys made it to the top, being under 6 foot and under 200 pounds,
That's what got him to the dance.
yeah, now everybody's like, oh, well, boom, I can do it.
Yeah. I mean, because you look at FTR, they're in shape. You look at, but they, you know what I mean? You can relate to them. The guy from Ring of Honor that now is doing a lot of independent stuff, the last man, the Sila. Is it Sila?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
Silas Young, the last real man.
Yes. To me, he is the quintessential wrestler.
Yeah.
Everything about him says wrestling. But he isn't ripped to shreds with 0% body fat, and he looks like a guy that eats a steak, drinks a beer, and then works out.
No, yeah.
But is that if that's
Did
what we're
you ever hear about what Farouk used to do?
no.
No, yeah. So apparently, yeah, he would roll into the gym, whatever gym was in town, I guess, and the other wrestlers would be in there getting a workout. I guess he'd roll in tight Levi jeans, cowboy boots, with a black V-neck T-shirt on, tucked into his jeans, with a belt buckle on, and he would have a pick in his fro, and then he would sit down on the bench. He would rep out. He would do 3 sets of 315, 10 sets apiece, and then he would just get up and leave. And that was all he did. And that was coming from Mark. I think that was coming from Mark Henry.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
I heard that in an interview with Mark Henry, and I was like, "What a beast!"
Yeah.
Just rolling in there huge.
I just think that I just noticed a trend now in body types. We've gone to the extreme. We're now you go from the hairy guys to the powerlifting type to the 80s/90s, and now everybody's under 6 foot, everybody's under 212, but everybody's ripped to shreds. And you put a guy who's 5'11", 180 ripped. You take the same guy, because there's a lot of them on AEW, and you put them right beside that aren't ripped, that maybe don't work out as much, and you look at him and you go, he looks like he's a sophomore in high school, and he looks like a legit. So does that affect what you're looking at? I just think the body type I've just noticed, and I just thought I'd bring that up because you don't see a lot of guys that can back it up in the indies when it comes to working out and staying in shape.
Yeah.
So
in a way, it's almost as if it's kind of filtered from these large, broad men all the way down through time to these just ripped to shred, lean fellas. And on the indies, on these small shows, you see a lot of different body types.
Yeah,
when you're looking at the body types that are making it to the show, those are the ones that stand out when you're on the indie scene.
Yeah.
So the people that are coming in without that body, those are generally the ones that either have that character that's unmatched, that in-ring work that the other people can't keep up with. Like you said, are we pigeonholing ourselves almost? In a way, kind of. I also see it as almost flooding the market.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's what I think that body type's done.
And I was going to say, Brian Danielson never was cut to shreds.
No.
And he's a small, you know what I mean? He's not a big dude either.
Yeah, he's a good example of he looks good, he wrestles, and he's
good,
believable.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that being in shape isn't believable.
No, yeah, that's not a good thing to put.
I just think that the message that is out there is we're not going to look at you unless you look like this.
Unless you look like this.
And you need to understand right now, it takes a lot, not only to look like that, but to consistently on the road look like that.
I actually heard this in an interview the other day. We would have to fact check this. But
get the fact checker.
We'll get the fact checker out, Tony. Let's go. Apparently, in America, there are more people that are millionaires than people that have six-pack abs showing on a regular basis. Apparently. And I guess there's only 30,000 millionaires in the United States.
Well,
see, that's a weird little fact, but when you think about it,
everybody you see, well, because you've got filters, and you find out that all these people are.
Because I said that to my wife, and she's like, "That doesn't seem right." And I'm like, "Think about it. Every person you see with a six pack is on Instagram,
Yep.
and it's probably the same dude or guy, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You're seeing the same little tiny small class of people."
But you are seeing a lot of six packs in the WWE.
Yeah, that's true. But like when I think about it on my regular day of life, walking around, I don't see it.
Right, and I'm digging and I'm not against the body type. I'm just saying, to me, the NWA stuff, if you watched NWA, if you've watched MLW, I lean more towards those companies when it comes to availability or opportunity, because you don't feel like, once again, you're overproduced and you have to fit a certain thing that the WWE, and I'm not knocking the WWE,
Hashtag Tony hates abs.
No, but Tony has no. I don't have it. I have one ab. Okay. It comes from my powerlifting days. I wasn't into having a six pack. I wanted to put up heavy weight and put it back down. That's all I care about. But with that being said, you were talking about that fact. I also got on, and it was like 2% or 3% of the population either in the world or in the United States can own, like. They did a study where if you can bench press your weight, squat your weight, and then deadlift 2 times your weight, there's like 2% of the population can do that.
I thought it was bench your weight, and I thought it was squat. I thought maybe it was squat. I think you're right, because I know it was double your weight for a deadlift for sure.
A deadlift for sure. I don't think squats double your weight.
I think it was just your weight.
You're
something like only 5% of people can do that.
And then when you just look at 225,
talking about bench.
There's a lot of it's a very small percentage of people who can bench 225.
It was something like less than. Oh man, it was a low number. It was something like less than 5% of the people in the world.
Yeah,
in the world, not just the United States. In the world can bench 225, and it was something like a 0.0 something % of people can bench 315.
Yes, wow. and consistently, of course, and then the 3 lifts is what got me.
Yeah.
Because you got to really think about that. So if you weigh 200, you got to deadlift 400.
Yep.
You got to bench 200. You got to squat 200.
Mm-hmm.
I know from my powerlifting days, guys would come in, you'd look at them, you're like, oh my gosh. And then they deadlift the crap out of it. And then they'd squat. And then they get under the bench. And they wouldn't even put up 300. And they did it like I remember talking to a guy, and I was in the bench category, and he's like, "What do you open up with? And are you going equipped or not?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm doing raw today. I'm going to open up with 340." And he's like, "I never trained." What's that?
I was going to say real quick. Do you just want to tell everybody what raw and equipped means?
Raw. If you don't know what that means, it's just you got a t-shirt on and a singlet, and you get under it, and you bench. It's a pause bench. You bring it down as soon as the bar is totally stopped. They give you an up call. Equipped means you got a bench shirt, and depending on the style and what's allowed, it's supposed to make up for the pause. You're in a different category, but they've mastered the shirt now to where you could probably get 200 to 300 more pounds just with a bench shirt, depending on what you're putting up. So he said to me, well, I don't train with anything past 275 raw. Think about that. He was opening with like 370. So 100 pounds over what he trains with, he's opening with because he's got a bench shirt. I opened up with 340, okay? and I tried to work my way up to 370, 380.
Right. And that's raw.
Raw. That's just, that's raw. So when I looked at him, and he was bigger than me, but he could not bench raw over 275. And then when he opened with his 350 and so on, he couldn't get it. He didn't get his list because there's a technique with the bench shirt.
Yeah.
All right. And I all my strength, I hit a wall until I trained with J.M. Blakely from 7th level. He's the master. He's the guru. And once I got with him and looked at technique and the way to bench, it was amazing how my bench went up. Once again, I know I'm strong. I don't care if I don't look it. I'm past looks. I'm married. I'm not looking for a mate. I like having certain vices, and I know if I have those, I can't look like Finn Balor. So with that being said, isn't it? So I just wanted to throw that little discussion. If you're out there listening, what do you think? We're going to take a quick pause, and then we're going to come back with the greatest of all time. This is the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. Hey, you into RC trucks? It's a great hobby. If you're not, you want to check out Three Brothers RC on Facebook, and they also have a Three Brothers RC fan page. It's a great way to share opinions and questions, ask about questions, get new insight on info for your RC, and also if you want the highest quality products for your RC, you need to go to Three Brothers RC. You need to do it now. That is Three Brothers RC. Check it out. Hey, we're back. The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. Check us out on Spotify. Hit follow if you like us. Go to YouTube. Subscribe, please. Leave comments if you're able. And, of course, we're over at Facebook at Outlaw Tony James. So we're going to move ahead into our main topic. Oh, my. Oh, my. This is going to get good. What we're going to do, we are going to talk about the Mount Rushmore of certain categories. Now, Jimmy and I, off the record, have talked about this. I've talked about this with some other guys, crew it as well. I've actually changed my way of thinking in the past couple weeks because of the way I've worded the question. Okay. I used to look at this as the greatest of all time, throw all the wrestlers in a bin. Someone has to be number one. I'm not doing subcategories. Here's a list of things you have to check off. Whoever has the most, they're number one, so on and so forth. I still go by that. However, with these subgroups we're doing now, I want to look at my subgroups and are those guys, if they don't check the box, then maybe they won't be in my top 10. So I'll kind of explain my theory on this because I've kind of changed a little bit. Because if you've talked to me outside the podcast, you're going to go, well, I don't remember you talking about that guy. Because I've done a little deep dive research, and I want to make sure that it isn't necessarily who I like, but in the grand scheme of things, right? Sure. So we're going to give you your top 10 overall greatest, and then we're going to do the honorable mention one because you always go, oh, can I have this one? I want to know who your one is and who your honorable mention is. Mm-hmm. You don't have to rank 2 through 10. You can just say these are who they are. If you want to rank them, you can. But I want to know your number one and then the guy that is basically your number 11. And then we're going to do the Mount Rushmore of brawlers, the Mount Rushmore of scientific, and the Mount Rushmore of modern day, or you can say high flyers, but we're going to call them modern day wrestlers. So rather than starting with our top 10, I want to know your top 10 brawlers. You only can pick 4. Their names are going to be engraved in the side of a mountain for the rest of your known lives. Who are your top 4 brawlers? Jimmy, you're up.
My top 4 brawlers. My Mount Rushmore. It's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Ooh!
It's going to be Roddy Piper, Mick Foley, and Bruiser Brody.
Hey! Okay, you got any problems with those, Bjorn?
2 of them I've got.
Oh, what?
Who do you have?
Who do you think I've got? I've got Mick Foley.
There it is.
And I've got Bruiser Brody.
Awesome. Yes. I didn't want to do a top 10 hardcore. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. I respect Mick Foley as a brawler.
I could have did a good list of hardcore.
Brody would be the first person I put on my Mount Rushmore, and I did. Brody's my number one. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we agree on that.
Nice. Look at us. High five.
Now wait a second.
High fives all around.
You have Piper and Austin.
Yeah.
Okay. Piper brawls.
Yeah.
Stone Cold brawled. I still look at Stone Cold as Stunning Steve, who's one of the greatest technical wrestlers, scientific wrestlers that I feel. This is the guy that had awesome matches with Ricky Steamboat, Barry Windham. I wish he would have always stayed Stunning Steve. Roddy, great scientific guy, but always just brawled because that was his character. So I could give you, I can kind of see Roddy. And I guess, once again, when you started watching, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's good. That's a good Mount Rushmore. Yeah. I think people would stop and take pictures of that.
Oh, sweet.
Bjorn.
$10 a piece.
What do you got?
My top 4. I've got Bruiser Brody.
Yes.
Big Van Vader.
Ooh.
Mick Foley. And this one I think might be a little... Some people might not really agree with me.
Okay.
No, more so agree with me on why I placed him here. I chose Gunter/Walter.
Oh!
No, I see that. I
think that he is a very efficient.
It's weird because he just looks like he's gonna brawl.
Interesting.
Exactly. You know
I think that he works so well.
Because I would have thrown him on the scientific side. But I get what you're saying.
I think he has so much force behind his movement that you have to put him in the
a couple things. First off, his body type has changed.
Yeah, it has.
Prototype, hello.
Has slimmed down.
Here's another thing. I look at these lists as all time.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. When you think of wrestling as brawlers, these are who you think of ever.
Yeah.
Got it? I don't think he's put enough time in to make the Mount Rushmore. That's just my opinion. I think you got to have, just because you have, matches don't make you, your longevity, your Brody, for example, has the experience, the longevity. It's what could have happened if he wouldn't have been murdered, where he would have been, because he was slated to possibly wrestle Hogan at a WrestleMania. That was his goal anyway, to wrestle the Golden Goose. So to me, does Walter have enough skin in the game to be on that Mount Rushmore? If you feel he does, but they don't chisel him in yet, then you've got a blank spot with just a sign saying, "Here hangs Walter," right?
Yeah, there's
Gunther. Excuse me.
to be continued is what that.
Okay, TBA, to be announced, like the next PWA show. Okay, so we all agree with Brody.
Yes.
So at least we got one out of the can.
That's the only one that we're going to agree on.
I've got Bruiser Brody.
Okay.
I've got Stan the Lariat Hansen.
I knew that was in there. Yeah.
I've got the Road Warriors. So when I chisel them, half will be Hawk, half will be Animal of the Face. And then my fourth is Sputnik Monroe.
Really?
Okay. So little history lesson. Sputnik Monroe from Memphis came out of World War II. He's the guy that broke the Carney work, which was at the Carney, it was always a 3-sided ring. And on the back side was a curtain. And they had a guy back there with a blackjack. And so in the ring was a shooter, a hooker. And you got so much money per minute to hang with the hooker. And if you could last, you got paid as a spectator.
Yeah.
They always got beat. And if they got a guy that couldn't beat him, the hooker would pull him and turn him towards the curtain, and the guy behind the curtain would hit the guy in the back of the head with the blackjack, and he'd get knocked out, and they wouldn't have to pay. So Sputnik comes along, and he was a legitimate tough guy. His buddies are like, "You got to get in the ring." He beats the hooker, and then they give him a job as a wrestler.
Oh.
He becomes a heel, and he's a legit shoot guy, brawler big time. Look him up. Jimmy Hart goes on and on about him, but Jimmy Hart also exposed him. When I was able to be managed by Jimmy Hart, he told me a story about Sputnik because he worked with Sputnik. He grew up watching Sputnik.
Yeah.
Sputnik is also the wrestler that broke segregation in Memphis. Think about this. You're in the South. You're in the 50s. First, blacks weren't allowed to come to the matches. Then if they were, they set them up in the crow's nest. and Sputnik was in the back, and he tells the story about how wrestlers are like, oh, they got to put them up in a crow's nest. Why do they got to be here? And Sputnik said, that's fine. Don't pay him out of their money. You pay him out of the white money. I have no problem. You need to move to let them sit anywhere they want. You pay me out of their money. And so then he was on Beale Street, and he walked into a black-only establishment and was drinking with his friends, and he got pulled down to the jail. And he told he told the judge, I defended this country. If I want to have a drink with my friends in a black bar, I'm going to do it. And so when they paid his fine, $25, he said, here's another 25. And they said, well, why? And he goes, because I'm going to do it again tomorrow night. Yeah. And because of him, they said in Memphis, there were 3 pictures hanging in a black household: Martin Luther King, Jesus, and Sputnik Monroe, because he broke that. All right. And there's another story with another wrestler that broke that too. But Sputnik Monroe was a nasty heel, a great brawler. Jimmy Hart tells a story where he actually got a black eye from getting in a fight with somebody and then going into the ring. But Sputnik tells a story where he actually had a live baby thrown at him at a match. But that's a whole other story. You're going to have to research Sputnik if you want to know why I put him in there. But that's my top 4.
Is the baby okay?
I don't know. That'd be a heck of a story to tell people. I was thrown in Sputnik Monroe.
Did he catch it?
That I don't know. He doesn't say. I just know that baby's probably, if he's still alive, in his 80s. So
the baby kind of hit her like a soccer ball.
So our brawlers. There's our brawlers. Everybody. We all agreed on Bruiser. We all had a nice variety. Yeah, Hanson. I love Stan. I could see Vader. He's definitely a brawler. Yeah. So we'll move on here. The Mount Rushmore of scientific. Because I know growing up, you was either a scientific or a brawler in my day. Yeah. Scientific just meant you know the moves. You just didn't punch and kick and throw stuff. You were working your butt off. We'll start with Bjorn this time. Bjorn, what do you got for scientific?
All right. So we're gonna go a little around here. I'll put at the very top Ric Flair.
Ooh.
Then we're going to follow that up, and I'm going to say William Regal.
Oh, my.
No, I'm not agreeing with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good choice.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm there.
I'm good with
that. I'm glad the list is good so far. My third is Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah.
Our list is starting to look kind of the same, bro.
Well, let's see if we've got this fourth one, Bryan Danielson.
Oh! I didn't have him on my list. No, but I'm thinking about it now. See, now I would have thrown him into the modern, but...
See,
that's a tough one.
That's a toughie one.
Yeah,
but no, I get what you're going.
I feel like he is one of the most sound technical wrestlers.
Absolutely.
At least over the last 1-2 decades, at least.
I originally had Bryan Danielson in my modern day, and then I took him off. So he's the man. What? Okay, so it's Flair, Regal,
Bret Hart, Bryan Danielson. That's my Mount Rushmore
of scientific wrestlers.
And we've got a Canadian in there. So.
Awesome. No, I like that. Jimmy, what do you got?
So I got 2 of the same. I got Ric Flair, Bret Hart.
Okay.
And I had Triple H.
Oh.
Everybody's thinking about it.
Okay.
Dude, cerebral assassin.
Yeah.
Right,
are we going by moniker or ring work?
I think the whole thing, man.
I know he was trained, but when he trained, no, he wasn't trained by Harley Race. He studied Harley Race. He was trained by
Killer Kowalski.
Yeah.
And then I had Kurt Angle.
Ooh,
okay. Right?
I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one. I'm not a Triple H. Yeah. Sorry. That's just me though. You guys probably won't like my list at all.
No. Okay.
But, I had Bret Hart, so we all agree on something.
Okay. Dude, we are all about it.
Bret Hart, we got another one.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't
on the mountain then.
Yeah, you got to put Bret Hart. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't put HBK.
See, I'm not putting him under scientific.
Okay.
Yeah, I want it. I mean, as much as I wouldn't picture HBK, I wouldn't picture Triple H as it.
Yeah, if you're not putting HBK, but you're putting Triple H on Scientific, what's the reasoning behind that?
Because HBK's not cerebral.
Yeah,
I guess if he was the cerebral kid, maybe you would put him on that.
I had an honorable mention, but like I was like, nah, I didn't know.
You can't chip away on the backside of Mount Rushmore and hope that people go see it.
Well, then if I was gonna take off Triple H, I was gonna put in Chris Benoit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tony, I know you and I have differing opinions on Chris Benoit's work.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching him. I thought that he brought a lot of intensity, a lot of technical work that you didn't really see during the early 2000s.
There were no holes in that work.
Yeah.
The stuff was tight.
Yeah. Yep. I'm only talking about professional wrestling here. We're not getting into. No,
only the work.
That's the beauty about wrestling. You don't have to like the guy personally.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I don't hold it against you if you like someone that then you find out in their past they did something shady. Unless then you use that as a motive to improve your life and then you got a problem. But anyway, I just was never a big fan. I didn't get Benoit. I didn't get him.
No, I get you.
I watched his stuff. I liked him better as a singles. I didn't like him in the Four Horsemen.
Yeah,
that's fair.
His earlier stuff I like because when you're younger, you just have more vim and vigor in you, and you like the Pegasus Kid, all that stuff. I really dug. I just felt like Ric Flair at some point. I thought I always got the same match at a certain point with Hogan in the late 80s, 88, 89. You know, I get the 3 punches in the boot and the leg, but I always liked Hogan previous to that because you really didn't know how his match was going to end getting to that point. Same thing with Benoit. I didn't get it. I didn't like that they put the belt on him. I didn't like the fact that WCW put the belt on him and the next day he quit. I put Eddie Guerrero above. I would put Eddie Guerrero above Chris Benoit.
I'm also not throwing Eddie Guerrero at the Science. The Science is a weird topic.
I would put Rey Mysterio in Scientific before I'd put Benoit.
I would put Rey more as a high flyer than I would any sort of Scientific.
See, this isn't part of the podcast.
Okay, but Rey does more than suicide dives. Think
true.
about it.
That's true.
Seriously. Rey does. I'm spilling stuff everywhere. Rey, when you watch his match, especially early WCW stuff with Eddie, they're chaining.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're Scientific to set up their high-flying stuff. They're just not a bunch of acrobats. They're in the union. They know how to work the equipment. So I would put those guys above Benoit. I'm sorry.
No.
But Benoit didn't make anybody's list. But you guys were saying that's who you would have put in, right?
That was on his list, wasn't it? Or was that
you wanted to put him on your
I was
list.
gonna, and then I went ahead and went with Triple H.
I would put HBK above Triple H. I would put Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio above Triple H.
HBK's better than everything Triple H.
Well, then, but you didn't put HBK on there.
He's on another list, man.
Okay, but I'm just saying. I mean, we're arguing, right? We're talking about our lists here.
Oh, no,
that's what makes it dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you probably guys are probably going to go, what's he drinking? Well, check it out. So here's my Mount Rushmore. Once again, I feel at the end of the day, when I think of pro wrestling, these are my guys. So I had Bret Hart. Okay. As much as I struggled, I had a couple other guys, but at the end of the day, it's Bret Hart. Mm-hmm. Whether I like him or I don't, he's the man. I had Kurt Hennig.
Nope, yeah.
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, that's right there.
Ricky Steamboat.
Yep.
Okay. And I had Barry Windham.
Barry Windham.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You've got to watch 85 Battle of the Belts, Ric Flair. And Crockett Invitational, 87 main event, Ric Flair. Everybody says they hold Ricky Steamboat in high regard because of his feud with Ric Flair. Mm-hmm. You watch Windham. You watch Windham and Stunning Steve. You watch Windham and Big Guys, right, with Vader. You watch Windham. I'm telling you, watch Barry Windham. For the 80s and early 90s when he became NWA Heavyweight Champion when he beat Muta for the NWA title. The guy can go and his work. But by the reaction or non-reaction to the gentleman here today, Wyndham is probably what they want to refute. So I'm okay with it. And I know a lot of people are going, Kurt Hennig, what the heck? Once again, man.
I'm not saying what the heck to Kurt Hennig.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So you're welcome to question Mr. Wyndham if you'd like. But once again, at least we got one guy.
We did get one guy.
We've got one guy.
If we can get another guy,
we've got one guy in each column. So
far,
we've got Brody and we've got Brett.
High-flying modern.
Yeah. So high-flying modern, and I'm going to go first because, of course, this is my weakness. Because you guys are more into the modern high-flying stuff, and I know what I like. Right? They always say I may not know art, but I know what I like.
Yeah.
I may not know modern day.
I think we're gonna get at least one dude.
Okay, well here it is.
We'll see.
Here it is, baby. I'm leaving it on the table.
And I think I know who it's gonna be.
Finn Balor.
Okay.
On my list.
Okada.
Okay.
Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
And Charlotte Flair.
I knew Charlotte Flair was gonna be on that.
That's my modern day. I felt they've put enough time in. If it ended tomorrow, the Impact. That's me. And you might be able to argue Cody Rhodes.
Now, when you say modern day, does it got to be a certain? Do they need to be wrestling like right now?
Well, to me, modern day era. You're talking the past 10 years at least, right?
Okay.
I would say even within the last 3.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, what I liked about Cody Rhodes was him going on the independent and learning his craft again. Everything he's done, I just think he's the great transition between past and present. Charlotte Flair, as wrestling goes, she needs to be in more conversations. Mm-hmm. I just dig the Rainmaker. He is tight, man.
Yeah.
What he does. I think they made a huge mistake by taking the title off. He should have been a long reigning. I thought he was the second coming of Inoki.
Yeah. Have you seen the work they recently did with Noah yet? New Japan.
I've caught some of that.
Okay.
And then Finn Balor. Yeah, I think he checks all the boxes myself.
He's just doing all this stuff.
But any criticisms, please throw them out.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
No, I had Finn Balor on my list.
Okay, well we'll go with you, Jimmy, and then we'll clean it on up with the trash later. So you had Finn Balor. Who else you got?
I had Finn Balor. I had to take a guy off my list because he hasn't done something in the last 10 years. So I had to bail out on that. But yeah, I had Finn Balor, AJ Styles,
Okay.
Rey Mysterio.
There you go.
And then since I had to take one guy,
who did you take off?
I took off Shawn Michaels because I was thinking,
technically he was at a Saudi show within the last 3 years.
Hey man, we don't talk about that on the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling.
That's not canonical.
Yeah.
I
didn't see that.
I'm those who are listening. You're probably wondering right now,
I think
how is Shawn Michaels on the modern day list, but not on scientific? Mr. WrestleMania, the showstopper. He's a technical wrestler. He went an hour with Bret Hart. He retired Ric Flair.
Retired by The Undertaker in one of the most renowned WrestleMania.
But yet, he is placed on modern day list after that tag match. I'm at a loss, Jimmy Fahrenheit.
Nobody saw it.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about it now.
Anyone who has Peacock can see it.
Somebody talk to me, Jimmy. What the heck?
Well, I was more thinking of like influenced modern day.
That's not the category. Because anyone could have influenced. Everybody talks about Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, CM Punk. They influenced me. Bret Hart. We didn't say influence. We said modern day high flyer / modern day wrestler.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right, Bjorn?
Yeah. Jimmy didn't read the assignment.
Jimmy went rogue.
Yeah.
Rogue Fahrenheit.
Well, but if I was going to go with my other modern day guy, see now I feel like I'm going to get after this one too.
Oh
Because
no.
I was gonna say John Cena, because he's modern day. I know he's not doing nothing like right at this moment.
I guess you could put him on there. I guess he'd fit, wouldn't he?
Not high flying,
Yeah, but modern day
but
wrestling.
modern day.
Yeah.
Who has he passed the torch to anybody yet?
You Cena?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't really.
where there's a
think
clear.
so.
You can. I mean, he hasn't been in the discussion for a while. I guess.
Yeah, I think they're trying to set up.
Because wouldn't it right now be Reigns?
Yeah.
Technically, yeah.
Technically.
Well, I mean, he did have a WrestleMania match with Reigns
Yeah.
2 years ago, I think.
I mean,
But I don't
well,
think
but
that
if
was
if
like
I'm going 10, if we're doing decade stuff, he would fit.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that I'm defending Shawn Michaels
I do love hearing this though.
and Jimmy.
I guess in my head, man, I guess I don't know. Like, to me,
Jimmy loves DX, and he had to have a member of both.
I guess let's get to Bjorn. Let's table Jimmy for a second.
Yeah. Okay, so I had to do a second draft because I looked at this and I thought, well, this is too many Bullet Club members.
Uh-oh.
So I'll go ahead and start off with Will Ospreay.
Oh.
okay.
I think that he's probably one of the best high flyers, modern wrestlers
I
around
agree.
right now. And while he has gotten a lot of exposure, I don't think he's gotten the exposure that someone that he can do
Yeah.
just yet.
I got turned on to him maybe back in 17.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm with you.
I started watching a couple of his matches back when they had What Culture Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
So
Don't
around
they still
like,
have What Culture Pro Wrestling?
no, that went out a few years ago.
They still have that on. Never mind. Yeah,
It's
they
still-
have it
it's
as a
still on YouTube,
channel.
yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I got you. I didn't know. that.
They had a promotion for.
Oh, they got rid of the promotion.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, I got you.
They had a promotion where they brought over War Machine a few times before. Now Viking Raiders before they went to WWE.
Yeah.
Second person I've got on here, I feel kind of goes hand in hand with Will Ospreay right now, is Kenny Omega.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
a huge fan of Kenny Omega, but at the same time, I feel like you can't
It's modern day.
dispute
You can.
Kenny Omega.
Not with the
Like,
title of modern day.
Yeah.
And he hits a high flyer.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And aren't they kind of in a feud right now?
Yeah, they just recently had some big feud over in Japan over who is the best because
Yes.
after Kenny left, Will filled his shoes.
And their bodies fit the prototype, too. don't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
Mhm.
I think Kenny's a little more broad.
He's a little bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next, I've got Maxwell Jacob Freeman.
Okay.
He's modern. He's not a flyer, but he is
He
modern.
is modern.
I think that he's
He is modern.
one of the best promos out there.
He is modern.
All right, well, I'll just get to the good part then and say Finn Balor.
Hey! Look at
Look
that.
at us having a dude on each list.
So, can you imagine if we would have done one more subcategory, we would have had our own Mount Rushmore of agreement.
We would have.
So let's just say this. Let's do this. Our Mount Rushmore of agreement. That's the only thing that gets you on the Mount Rushmore. Bruiser Brody, Bret Hart, Finn Balor, and Shawn Michaels is going to be the overall.
That's
just
a good
because.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
That is a good Mount.
You got a brawler, a scientific wrestler, you got a modern day, and then you've got
a showstopper.
you got a miscellaneous category that Jimmy is totally messed up now.
I can't have him be the top of every category.
The history of
on top of every category.
the history of pro wrestling, thanks to Jimmy Fahrenheit. Hey, we're going to be right back. The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. We're going to come back with our final category, which is the greatest list of wrestlers of all time. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the good, the bad, and the wrestling, the Tony James podcast, brings you the PWA Tag Team Champions of the World, the King of Swole, Jimmy Fahrenheit, the Outlaw, Tony James, the PWA Tag Team Champions. See us here on YouTube and on Spotify, the good, the bad, and the wrestling, the Tony James podcast.
Hey, we are back. It's the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. Hit us up on Spotify. Follow us if you like us. YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're able to leave a comment, please do so. And then don't forget over at Facebook, Outlaw Tony James. We'll be posting some stuff. Now, we've talked about our Mount Rushmores. We've tried to salvage Shawn Michaels' career. And now we're getting into the greatest. This is it, baby. When you think of the greatest wrestlers of all time, between when the first guy got into today, right now, what are they? All I want to know is who's your number one and who's your number 11. You know, the guy you go, oh, wait, can I have him? Yes, you can. He's your number 11. If you want to rank 2 through 10 and say this is how I'm ranking them, please do so. Or you can just say, hey, no particular order. Here's my number 11. And then count it down and say, this is my number one guy. Or you can flip it. It's your world. We know Jimmy's going to do what he wants to do with this. So who would like to start?
I want to go.
Oh, of course he does.
No.
He wants to break the mold.
I was going to let Bjorn go first, man.
No, go ahead, Jimmy. We want to hear from Jimmy Fahrenheit.
Before anyone comes
I am excited to see a video of me and Bjorn's matchup here. All right, so in no particular order, I'll do the 2 through 10.
Okay.
So I got Triple H, John Cena, AJ Styles, Ric Flair, Eddie Guerrero, Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, the Macho Man, and then the Ultimate Warrior.
Who's your...
My honorable mention would be The Undertaker.
Okay.
And then...
Who's your number one, Jimmy?
Man, I couldn't decide.
You couldn't decide.
Oh!
So hard. I sat up for like 5
It was
days.
between Chris Benoit and Triple H.
Oh, absolutely.
It was essentially the WrestleMania triple threat match.
Yes.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, I was like, man, is it Santino Marella?
Oh, it has to be. Who is it?
It's Shawn Michaels.
Oh, there it is. There. That's why you were bait and switching us earlier. Okay, well, let's deconstruct that list, Bjorn. What is your comments on that list?
You know, I feel like the list is pretty solid as far as wrestlers and entertainers go. The two names that stuck out the most to me as not fitting the other 8, I guess, would be the Ultimate Warrior and Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I don't have anything against Brock Lesnar, and I don't really have anything against the Ultimate Warrior. I just don't think that they really fit into the same echelon as the other
all
people.
the other guys kind of feel different, right?
Yeah.
No, man, the Ultimate Warrior, just for all the reasons everybody liked him anyways. Just
Yeah, I get it.
just the song, the face paint, the body, the stuff.
I get.
You're wearing a Warrior shirt
I know,
right now.
and the Macho Man's on there.
I totally get Warrior for you.
Do I get what you mean by how like his wrestling ability to all those other guys? Yeah, absolutely.
But you're checking the boxes. When people talk pro wrestling, they bring up the Warrior.
The Warrior.
He had a huge influence in his short career.
Yeah, I mean, and then
but it actually was longer than you think. Early 80s.
It was like, or I thought, yeah.
Pro Wrestling USA tag with Sting. He was in a team, and then he was the Blade Runners.
Yeah.
Then he went to WCCW's The Dingo Warrior.
Yep.
And then he did his I would call it a brief run in the WWF. Then he went to WCW, and then he had that comeback match.
Against the great scientific wrestler Triple H.
No. I'm talking about his very last match.
You mean like ever?
Yeah.
That was against Orlando Jordan.
Yes, Orlando Jordan.
Oh.
See, I got some stuff.
But if you really think about his later stuff, he didn't do a lot. But the impact he made.
Yeah, it's just the impact.
Absolutely. And Brock Lesnar, too.
And Brock Lesnar, he's been saying what you want to say about him or whatever, but as far as being like a dominating...
I wouldn't say anything to him to his face.
But he's just been a dominating force for...
Absolutely.
What? Almost. I mean, I know he took a lot of time off there, but it's rolling up on 20 years.
He took time off to go be a dominant force in New Japan and then in the UFC.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like,
He definitely hasn't, I guess I'd say, stepped away from any sort of intimidating action.
Yeah,
I can see an argument why they're on and why they're off. Or I get that. Those two would be, and I wish I should have said you get two. You can have two honorable mentions. Because the Chris Jericho thing.
Yeah, I had Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I know he's on yours. I had a hard time where I would place him. Overall, he's in my top 15.
Mm-hmm.
I just it hurts my soul because the stuff he does is great. But once again, you got to man up.
I know. I wish we could do a top 15.
And you have to.
I got a bunch on.
You
there.
have to. Someone has to be number one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And someone has to be number 11. And number 11 is The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Right for you.
For me, yes.
Yeah, and
no, that was me.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not. Undertaker doesn't.
He doesn't hit your list?
No.
He doesn't do it for you, Tony?
Do you want to go or do you want me to go, Bjorn?
I want Bjorn to go.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll go. I'll go the 2 through 10.
Okay.
These are in no particular order.
All right.
I've got Vader, Bret Hart, Bruiser Brody, MJF, Walter / Gunther, the Macho Man,
Oh, yes!
and Hogan.
Oh, and Hogan?
And Hogan.
Nice.
Who's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention is Stone Cold.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I put Stone Cold as my honorable mention because I personally think that The Rock is a better wrestler.
Oh, man.
Oh my.
And this is...
I'm bailing out.
He's
this
gone.
is- sometimes Jimmy's got to go.
Fahrenheit has left the building.
If we can argue
It's
why...
glad to get some air.
If we can argue why Triple H is technical and why HBK is modern,
That was
Yeah, Jimmy doesn't have an argument on this
That
one.
was
then I think that we can argue why
That
The
was-
Rock holds a little more.
I just didn't understand the assignment, okay? That's my...
Wow, I'm going to be honest. So when I look at this means 20 years from now, the majority of your list is going to be talked about, right? We think the greatest of all time because the list, when you look at the list
Did you say who your number one was?
Number 1 is Bryan Danielson
Okay.
of all time,
of all time.
Of all time. And Sean wasn't on that list anywhere.
wow,
I don't have Shawn
Was
Michaels
he
on
in the top
my
15?
list.
that is
He's in top 15.
that's crazy to me.
Hmm.
That's crazy.
What's
to me.
the crazy part?
What part's crazy for you?
Well,
Wait,
so
did you say that The Rock was a better wrestler than Stone Cold or worse?
better?
Better.
He
Did
said
you
better.
throw The Rock on the list?
Yeah, The Rock's on the list.
Oh, I didn't hear you say it.
I didn't hear you say The Rock.
Yeah, I got The Rock on the list.
Oh, we
From 2 to 8, 2
Yeah.
to 10.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess
Oh no, Stone Cold. I didn't hear you say that, but
Yeah,
Stone Cold's your honorable
Stone Cold's
mention.
not in my top
he's
10.
the
Stone
11th.
Cold is my honorable
So-
mention.
When
You
the
put
greatest
Bret
of all
Hart on
time. I mean, it's like if you do greatest quarterbacks, greatest teams. Teams maybe not so much because maybe franchises maybe, but the greatest of all time. Like when you talk to anybody about wrestling at any point, these names consistently come up.
Mhm.
When I think wrestling, who do I think of? Now you can say when you think of Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
Overall, does he fit into the lexicon, the fabric of society, to where when we talk pro wrestling, like when you talk quarterbacks in the NFL, you think of Joe Montana, Joe Namath. They're always going to be on there, no matter what, no matter how many 100 years from now you're going to talk about Super Bowl III. You're going to talk about Tom Brady. You're going to talk about Joe Montana. You're going to talk about Dan Marino. Those are old guys, but they're always on there. I don't know if Bryan Danielson has had enough skin in the game to be in that yet, even though he's been around for a while. MJF, to me, has not put in any time to be on the top greatest of all time. That's just my opinion. Just because he was on Rosie O'Donnell when he was 8, now all of a sudden everybody loves him. I don't get it. They compared him to Roddy Piper. He is no Roddy Piper. To take a quote from Jay Lethal's Woo Off, it looks like Roddy Piper came into that ring and took a dump and left that being MJF.
Let this go down, Bjorn.
That is just my opinion on that.
You know, I mean, it's hard to argue with Tony James. He's got
See,
that.
now,
No, it's not argue.
See, I'm not I'm not hating on the MJF comment because I think MJF's entertaining. I got more messed up with the Stone Cold Rock thing.
I'm not saying I don't hate. I mean, I don't know MJF personally. I get what he's trying to do. I just don't. I think certain wrestlers get romanticized. You see it. You could probably say that about some of the guys in our own locker room. They get this aura put on them, and they haven't. What have they done? Really?
Mm-hmm.
What have they done?
So, well, let me go to this thing.
If you hear that noise, we've let the horses out.
There's two people on this list that are both relatively modern that neither of you have seemed to have a problem with.
Who go?
Whose list?
Gunter and Dax Harwood.
Where'd they come from?
They're on my list. I read through them.
I didn't hear you say Dax.
No?
I heard you say Gunter, and once again, I don't think he's got enough skin in the game to be listed.
I did not hear you say the Dax guy.
Yeah, and I like that. I think he's great.
I think I was laughing at Tony over the MJF.
Okay.
Dax will be on that list eventually. I think he's like a Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Once again, I am thinking experience should count for something if you're going to be ranked against guys that have come before you. That's all. That's why some certain guys I'm not into.
Wait, I blanked out. What was your honorable mention? Stone Cold.
Yeah, the honorable.
Okay.
So give us just go through your 11 now once again, so we're all clear. In case we were talking over you.
Do number 1.
Brian Danielson.
Okay.
And then the rest of them.
But Brian Danielson was trained by Shawn Michaels.
Brian Danielson is truly at my number 1 right now.
Okay.
Then I've got MJF, Dax Harwood, Walter / Gunter, Vader, Bret Hart, Bruiser Brody, The Rock, Hogan, and Macho Man.
Well, you definitely have, and then your Stone Cold's your honorable.
Stone Cold's the honorable.
And then, so you definitely have a wide variety.
Yeah, I try to take people.
If Bjorn was a bowl of nuts, he'd be mixed. Okay. That's cool. Well, I'm sure. I love this. You guys are going to rip me apart. Once again, whether I like the guys or not, I just look at longevity, skin in the game. When you talk wrestling, how about this? If you took these top 10 in the honorable mention out of wrestling history, would wrestling still survive? Apply that to your list. That's kind of some of the thought process. If I take these guys out, does it affect? Here we go. And I'll do what you guys did. I'll go 2 through 10 and then give you my honorable. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to rank them.
Ooh, okay.
My number 2, Andre the Giant. My number 3, Ric Flair. My number 4, Stone Cold Steve Austin. My number 5, Gorgeous George. My number 6, The Rock. My number 7, Superstar Billy Graham. My number 8, Terry Funk. My number 9, John Cena. My number 10, Bruno Sammartino.
Okay.
My honorable mention is Dusty Rhodes. And my number 1 is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
I look at those and I say, if you take those guys out,
Something happened.
are we talking?
Yeah.
Is wrestling in the fabric of society? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and you guys, I'm sure there's some on there you're going, who in that? Gorgeous George?
No, Gorgeous George.
I put him on there because that's who everybody goes. But wrestling used to be guys in the same color trunks and booties doing headlocks for 2 hours. Yeah. He comes out in a robe with blonde hair, and he has a gimmick where he brings his own air to breathe because he didn't want to breathe. He's in Ohio. He brings air from Florida. And you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
People go back to Gorgeous. Then you have Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, who influences Nature Boy Ric Flair. So, you guys tear that apart now.
No, I agree with most of that.
And I'm not a John Cena fan, but
John Cena.
Look what he's done.
Yeah.
John Cena's he was the man for like.
Has he passed Ric Flair's title reign?
No.
I thought he tied.
I think they're tied.
Okay.
You know who's gonna pass it?
Triple H.
Randy Orton.
I was gonna say Charlotte.
I would like.
Yeah, she probably will.
That probably is the angle. I always thought Triple H was
how
going to do
potato
it.
the women's title was.
He's at
14 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point I thought that was his goal in life, to be above Ric Flair. Randy Orton's probably the guy that if
Where's
they do
Randy
it,
Orton at? He's hot.
Randy Orton.
He's in double digits for sure.
he's either 14 or 15, I think.
He's hot.
Yeah.
Cena's tied.
It might be 15 because I want to say the last title Orton won was the world title from Bray Wyatt in like 2018 or 19. It was during the, if you follow storylines, it's during the Viper and the Family storyline where Randy Orton is trying to get into the Wyatt family with the now deceased Luke Harper, Brody Lee,
Okay.
and Bray Wyatt.
I'm actually surprised. I mean, I'm not arguing with Tony having.
Hold on, Jimmy. Before we argue, we're going to take a station break and let everybody know what's going on. This is The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling, a Tony James podcast. The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling, a Tony James podcast. Check us out on Spotify. Don't forget to click follow. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe if you like it. Leave your comments. Let us know what's going on. And don't forget, over on Facebook, all you have to do is look up Outlaw Tony James, and we're always posting some new link. And if you want to know what's going down in independent wrestling, if you have any information on independent wrestling, reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. We'd love to share your experience. We're always looking and trying to promote new talent. That is The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling, a Tony James podcast. Hey, we're back. It's The Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling, a Tony James podcast. Don't forget to hit us up on Spotify, YouTube, and Outlaw Tony James at Facebook. So I didn't mean to cut Jimmy off, but we're going to finish up this segment about the greatest. Where I interrupted you, Jimmy. Do you remember what we were talking about?
Yeah, I was actually just a little surprised that you had The Rock on your top 10 list.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big Rock fan. I love rock and roll, but I can't ignore what he's done. When you talk pro wrestling, you mention Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You do. I'm telling you, he has branded himself in movies and other things, and people go back to pro wrestling. They do. WWE keeps trying to bring him back because he brings followers. If you take The Rock out of pro wrestling, you do not have The Rock and Stone Cold in the 90s. You take one of the horses out of the WWE when they finally got back into the stroke. It was Austin. Think about what The Rock did in the 90s.
I just feel like if you bring up people from back, like if you bring up Hogan, you're only thinking of wrestling, right? If you bring up Dusty Rhodes, you're only thinking of wrestling, stuff like that.
But,
I feel like
Hogan did more than that. Hogan.
I know he did movies.
No, I'm not just talking movies though. He did talk shows. He the Rock and Wrestling Connection, movie stars, political forces between 83 and who knows when they came to him. He was used as a beacon, even if it wasn't in the ring. I view Rock the same way. They say Rock was Hogan, but taken to a different level.
I just feel like in 20 years, if you bring up The Rock, it's going to be that actor. It isn't going to be that guy who used to be a pro wrestler.
I think you also have to take it from the perspective of
because even to this day, if you bring up Hulk Hogan, it's Hulk Hogan.
When you talk to someone who's fallen out of wrestling, it's always or someone who used to watch it.
And that might be Cena here soon. We don't know.
Well, one of the first things they'll always say is, "Oh, I used to watch it during the days of like The Rock and Macho Man or Hogan and Piper." They always pick out those 2-3 people, and that is the names that they remember for when they watched it.
Yeah.
I just feel like I would take Rock out and put Jericho there, and I'd have no problem.
You have no problem with it. Yeah.
Well, how does Jericho win 2 titles in one night?
The Rock. Maybe you say The Rock quietly. He slipped into your brain subconsciously. I'm telling you. Once again, the WrestleMania 18.
Oh yeah, that's
okay. The WrestleMania 19, wrestling Stone Cold. Him coming back and putting Brock Lesnar over at SummerSlam. He has done more.
Than all the Cena stuff.
He has done more. When you have to go back, it was like what they were doing with Hogan for a while. Well, we got to go back and get Hogan. Well, we got to go back and get Hogan. And then it was, well, we got to use Flair. Well, we got to use Flair, right? Yeah. Promotions before those two, well, bring in Andre. Well, we got to bring in Andre. Let's bring in The Rock. Let's bring in Stone Cold. Mm-hmm. Stone Cold, after his injury, is the master of I can do everything. I don't need to wrestle, and I can get a rating.
Yeah.
Look at WrestleMania when he wrestled Owens. Mm-hmm. Right? People want to see The Rock versus Roman Reigns. I don't care what anybody says.
No, they do.
They want to see that. So to me, he's got to be in there for that alone. Same thing with Stone Cold. When you talk merch, when you talk about changing the narrative, he was the guy. It's a shame we didn't see Rock Hogan in a ring. Yeah. But both guys weren't in that place to who's going to put who over, and I don't think it was about that. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's something to be said about not watching two guys wrestle and have that stigma so you can always talk about it.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So that's why I put The Rock in there. I'll be honest with you. When he started getting preachy during the last election, I was like, man. But once again, I'm not going to take away what he's The Rock.
Who was your honorable mention? Oh, it was Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, Dusty Rhodes. I knew I'd take it. Look at Dusty. I mean, Dusty freaking Rhodes. Mm-hmm. How do you not put him in? People, it's Dusty Rhodes. Yeah. When you look all over social media and people are posting stuff, Dusty Rhodes is a part of that. Dusty had huge, back in the day when a feud went a long time, him and Ric Flair. Over and over again. And more so than not, Ric Flair always got the better of Dusty Rhodes, but when Dusty did win, it was always a big deal. So, and Dusty was the common man, right?
Wasn't it his feud with Ole Anderson? It'll never be over.
Yeah, right. Terry Funk's another one that Terry Funk, the longevity, the way he rejuvenized ECW, his stuff in Japan that brought certain guys over.
Yeah.
He's the king of hardcore and death matches. He crossed many different genres. You could put him in scientific as well.
I was first exposed to Terry Funk, obviously, as Chainsaw Charlie and his deathmatch stuff. And then it wasn't until I started digging into like the Bruiser Brody and stuff. And I know I had sent you a match before where I wanted to talk about everything in it. It was Bruiser Brody and Hanson versus the Funks.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great match. And you're talking 70s, early 80s. Terry, he was an NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Mm-hmm. He's got the lineage with his brother and his dad. You could argue the Briscoes, but once again, when you talk pro wrestling, Terry Funk's name is looped through what he's done. I'll be honest with you, Bruno Sammartino, with his title reign, his 2 title reigns, that alone, you can argue it was regional, it wasn't nationwide, but nonetheless, you sell Madison Square Garden out on a basis to where he could retire and do what he did. Mm-hmm. So anyway, those, Superstar, you could argue don't put him on the list, but I thought he did what the 80s did before they were thinking about it. I still say if they keep the title on him, you could still bring Hogan over, but if you didn't want to bring Hogan, he's the guy that fits the bill. Superstar Billy Graham, not Kung Fu, Kevin Sullivan, Florida wrestling superstar. Yeah. But that was because he dropped the bob and it got in his head. He wanted to kill the Superstar character and do something totally different, which But
that goes to be said for all wrestlers. Also, is when you get to that point of, do I kill this character? Do I ride it?
Right. Yeah. Just their transformation, like we talked the evolution of indie guys, just the evolution of some of these guys. Not everyone's successful changing their name and their look and their music. It's who can get away with it, who can't. So. Did we have anybody that was consistent on all our lists?
I think me and you, Tony. I think me and you had Ric Flair.
Did you have Ric Flair?
You didn't.
I didn't have Flair. I had Brody on my list.
I think me and you both had Ric Flair, and that was our only.
How about John Cena?
Oh, I mean, you had John Cena.
I didn't have John
I
Cena.
can't believe you didn't have John Cena.
I'm falling behind.
But me and
Did you have Hulk?
No.
I did have Hulk.
We had Hulk.
But me and you had the Macho Man.
Yes.
I didn't.
And I know you didn't. But but I feel like
You're not a Macho Man.
I didn't say that.
Don't even get him going, man.
Okay.
And you could probably argue put Macho on there.
Is he in 15?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
you could technically. I guess I could have put Macho Man in there.
Throw everybody into the 15.
Yeah.
Is he in
The honorable 15.
He's in the 15.
Yeah, we don't have
The
to talk about
honorable
it.
15 is 25.
Macho Man, I get it. You know, you could probably argue him over Terry Funk, maybe, or Superstar, or even Gorgeous George.
Who else did you have? I'm trying to see if any of our.
I had 3 honorable mentions total.
Uh-oh.
Because I put Mick Foley as an honorable mention on there.
Okay.
This isn't quite in my Stone Cold honorable mention. Stone Cold is the honorable mention.
Sure he is.
And then I thought this goes against your time and skin in the game, but I put Cash Wheeler in there also, the other half of FTR.
Nothing against anybody we've talked about.
Yeah.
I just look at it as, on my opinion of it, when you think pro wrestling, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, currently, who comes up?
Yeah.
And once again, you could argue Macho Man. His name comes up a lot. He gets a lot of play. He gets a lot of merchandise still.
He's still on the Slim Jim package.
The man's, I get it. And so if I made a faux pas, it was probably Macho Man.
Top 15, dude.
Maybe I bump Gorgeous George out, put in Dusty Rhodes, and I make my honorable mention Macho Man. You got only so much wiggle room on influence. Are we where we at today if you take Gorgeous George out?
Right.
Possibly. Are we still where we're at if Macho Man doesn't come around? Did Macho have that much of an influence on it? Because here's the thing.
Without Macho, is there Jay Lethal?
Absolutely. I think there is.
Yeah.
You also got to look at who they wrestled and the rub they got that projected them. So Dusty Rhodes wrestling Ric Flair proved Ric Flair. So if Dusty isn't around, if you know Ric Flair's background, that totally changes Ric Flair's projection, because he wanted to be rambling Ricky Rhodes. He didn't want to be Ric Flair. He didn't want to do the Nature Boy gimmick. He wanted to do a Dusty gimmick. And Dusty said, "No, be your own man." If Dusty's not in the Rhodes, he's not in the world. He's not into that. So who knows what Ric Flair becomes?
Yeah.
Savage, in my opinion, had great stuff, but the Hogan thing put him on the map.
Yeah.
Andre put Hogan on the map. You see what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
So then you follow the branches and the roots. The roots are, the blues are the roots. Everything else is the fruits. So the top 10 wrestlers are the roots. Everybody else are the fruits from those guys. So who are your top 10? That's what you got to, and that's the argument. So that's why when I say MJF, Daniel Bryan, those are going to be the roots of guys coming, I think, if they stay and make it. Danielson will be a root.
Yeah.
He will be a root. FTR, I think they'll be a root. There are going to be guys growing up saying, I want to be a tag team, and they're going to do a match someday on TV, and they're going to have tights that pay tribute to FTR, right? Because that's the thing to do now. I'm still out on MJF. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet. So, Jimmy, you got anything to say as we wrap this up?
No, man, I think it was I thought it was just pretty cool to hear everybody's list, man.
Yeah.
Kind of see where everybody's perspective's at. Because I know I said in the last podcast, I didn't start watching wrestling until 2003, So I feel like a lot of my guys are from that ruthless aggression era.
That makes sense.
But like I said before, I was really only watching John Cena, and then John Cena went to Raw, and then I'm like, oh, bam, there's Shawn Michaels.
Hey, that's why John Cena should be on the list then, right?
He was on the list.
I'm just saying.
And then, like what you were saying about the roots thing, is then I'm just going backwards in Shawn Michaels' career, and that's when I do get to see, Bret Hart, and then
Yeah.
see Mr. Perfect, and then I'm like, there's some Hogan stuff, and then there's Ultimate Warrior stuff.
Yep.
So it's just all.
If John Cena didn't win the tag titles with HBK, Jimmy would have never become a wrestler.
Isn't that amazing? We wouldn't. I don't know who we'd be talking
I
to
want to know
today.
who's had more tag team partners, me or Shawn Michaels. I know he screwed over more.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
You've been screwed over more.
I know.
You know what I think? If Jimmy's
Tony,
not here
Don't be
today,
thinking about it, Tony.
if Jimmy's not here today, we're probably talking to MJF. Where can we find you on social media, Jimmy?
You can find me at my Instagram. It's going to be Mr.Fahrenheit 200, or I'm sorry, 200. And then on Facebook at Jimmy Fahrenheit.
All right. Hey, Bjorn, what do you got to wrap this up? You got any last comments?
I am thrilled to be here, thrilled to talk wrestling, thrilled to wrestle. If you see me, if you know me, book me.
There it is.
And I am here to fight. You can find me on Instagram at long_live_Bjorn. And matches on YouTube, pwaohio.com.
Yeah, pwaohio.com. You got a lot of stuff there on YouTube. They go back quite a ways. So if you are listening to us and you're hearing us talk about certain experiences we've had, you can find those matches on PWA. If you like what you're seeing on their site, make sure you click subscribe, follow, make your comments. We are on Spotify here at the Good, the Bad, the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. I'd appreciate it if you click follow and make comments if you can on YouTube. We are the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast. And on Facebook, it is Outlaw Tony James. Hey! The bell of justice is ringing, and that is also the dinner bell. And it is time that we move on down the road. I appreciate you showing up. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. God is good. Keep it real. Be kind, and we will catch you next time on the Good, the Bad, and the Wrestling of Tony James podcast.
Do it!